Welcome to First Mover, your first global look at today's action in the Bitcoin, blockchain, and digital asset space. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Joining me are my co-hosts, Coindesk Managing Editor of Global Capital Markets, Lawrence Lewitton, as well as Managing Director of International Content, Emily Parker. Good morning, and I hope you had a happy Halloween over the weekend.
Yeah, there's a lot of candy involved.
A lot of candy involved. And it was the birthday of the Bitcoin white paper. Let's have a quick
Bar
look.
mitzvah.
The bar mitzvah.
It was a bar mitzvah. 13 years old. It was, yes,
13 years old.
Today Bitcoin has become a man.
L'chaim, Mazel Tov, Bitcoin. All right, let's have a quick look at the CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index, currently trading at $61,894. Bitcoin is up about 2.4% over the past 24 hours. And the CoinDesk Ether price ETX index is at 43.52. ETH is also shooting up almost 4%. And the new DFX, Coindesk DeFi index, is trading at 630 points, up about 2.8% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the Coindesk brand, trusted globally as a leader in crypto news, events, and data. So yes, lots of news. Bitcoin turned 13 years old, the white paper. Today begins the trial of Craig Wright against the Kleiman estate in Florida. We'll see what happens there. And Lawrence, you wrote an article over the weekend about SHIB. SHIB has taken over the Times Square with a huge billboard, a massive billboard pumping up Shiba Inu coin. This is pretty, I don't know, what do you call it? Frothy? Mainstream? Lawrence?
Yeah, usually, I remember Times Square back in the day when interesting things would be up on billboards, but nothing you want to repeat in a family venue. And maybe that's the case here. Yeah, the piece that I wrote over the weekend was about how SHIB and Dogecoin are very retail friendly, and part of it is a discussion we had with Wazarex on Friday. How a lot of retail investors are coming into it because they have this unit bias where you could buy for, as I said in my story, for like $620. Now it's about 700 and change. You could buy 10 million SHIB versus 0.01 Bitcoin, and you're still investing the same amount of money, but psychologically people look at that and they go, "Wow, that's 10 million of something," but guys, your SHIB is not going up to $65,000 per like Bitcoin. It's like not the same idea, but it gets people excited. They get in there, and maybe it teaches them how to trade. So, there is something to be said for that. Maybe they could also lose their shirt because it's so volatile. So they're learning something about crypto.
Emily, your 2 cents?
Yeah, I mean, Lawrence's column was really interesting. I think, part of the meme coin resurgence does have to do with this fact that Bitcoin is really growing up. It's very expensive. It's being talked about in terms of Bitcoin futures ETFs. And so I think that somewhat explains the appeal of some of these like more fun meme coins that are very cheap and kind of just appeal to the more general retail investor.
I
want to know who bought that billboard, by the way. I'm curious.
I know.
This is like a decentralized, like who
exactly.
bought that?
How
somebody with a lot of SHIB.
Yeah.
You got to find all the SHIB whales.
Yeah, the SHIB army. Speaking of appeal, it's also NFT.NYC, a week-long conference, and that's bringing Bored Apes, mutants, and other folks and the NFT community together. And here's a line that we have of a video wrapping around the block in Soho to get wristbands for the Bored Ape Yacht Club kickoff party. 1,000 people partied the night away on a yacht sailing around New York City Harbor, and we'll see, there it goes, a lot of that.
Yacht rock.
Yes, over the week. It's going to be quite hectic. Also, Digital Currency Group raising $700 million in an investment round led by SoftBank with a $10 billion valuation. DCG, which is also the parent company of Grayscale and Coindesk, has pledged to buy as much as $1 billion worth of shares from the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which has been trading at a discount since March. Joining us now to discuss is Dave LaValle, Grayscale's global head of ETFs. Welcome to the show, Dave. So Grayscale's Bitcoin Trust has $40 billion worth of Bitcoin in assets under management, 3% of all Bitcoin in circulation. It's been trading at a discount. Any idea if this new raise from DCG will go toward buying up shares of GBTC?
Look, the investment that was announced over the weekend, this morning, is something that's really exciting for us. And Grayscale is very happy to be a part of the Digital Currency Group parent company, as you well know. And no, there isn't any indication that is going to go towards any investment in further buying GBTC shares.
So, Dave, the persistent discount in GBTC, isn't that the market just saying, hey, look, this is never going to be an ETF, or this most likely it's not going to be an ETF, at least anytime soon? What do you say to that?
No, I don't think the persistent discount is any indication that is speaking towards the timing of a potential GBTC conversion into an ETF. We've been very public about our conviction and our determination, and also our interest in converting GBTC into an ETF. But really, as we all know, that's subject to regulatory approval. And I think that the discount is something that offers an opportunity for investors who believe in the Bitcoin opportunity. There's a number of different ways to invest in Bitcoin. We're have a lot of conviction about this conversion to an ETF. While we can't predict timing, we're very excited that the SEC is open to the opportunity to review our filing.
Why do you think that discount's still there? What's the driving factor for the discount?
Well, there's a number of different ways that investors can invest in Bitcoin, and obviously the structure of the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust doesn't allow for redemptions, and that's a result of the regulators disallowal of those redemptions, and until we're allowed for simultaneous creations and redemptions, which would be a result of our ETF approval, I think we're have the potential to continue to see a discount. Upon the regulatory approval for an ETF, I think we would see that discount collapse quite quickly, and it's something that we're very active engaging with our regulators about.
So one recent hot topic has been, several people, including here at Coindesk, arguing that a Bitcoin futures ETF is actually not that good an investment compared to a Bitcoin spot ETF for various reasons, like contango. And I'm just curious how you see that, because there's been a lot of commentary on that, just saying over time, you're going to actually lose money if you invest this way.
So, in instances when a commodity can be reliably stored, such as gold or silver, investors have overwhelmingly preferred a spot product versus a futures product. So when we take a look at GLD or IAU or SLV, these are all ETFs that physically hold the commodity. We believe that that's going to be the same for Bitcoin as well. There are inherently other complexities in a futures-based commodity product. And some of those complexities you outlined there, there's additional costs, a little bit more complex for the manager to have to roll the futures. And ultimately that can bleed away from the investor's return profile or the investor's ability to really track the underlying commodity that they're investing in. And so, we're excited about the approval of the Bitcoin future ETF. We think it's, a great step in the right direction for the ETF industry, but we believe that the spot product will be a more effective representation of the underlying asset in the ETF wrapper.
So, Dave, we had the ETF futures launched? They were fairly successful, but have they taken this? Would they take the steam out of a spot ETF should one be approved? I mean, have they taken all the money that you could possibly take in for an ETF?
No. I mean, look, the approval of BITO was, and the ultimate listing, the first few days of trading was a very impressive asset gathering. Quickest ETF to over $1 billion in assets, a very impressive launch, and frankly, a great win for the overall ETF industry and markets in general, that the product has been trading smoothly and the liquidity has been strong and investors have been having a good experience buying and selling the product. But ultimately, after getting to that first billion, there really hasn't been a meaningful asset raise since. I think it's about 1.1 or 1.2 billion in assets right now. I think a spot Bitcoin approval and a spot Bitcoin launch would garner significant asset raise relative to that.
Wouldn't it be easier though to convert, let's say, an ETH fund into an ETF, spot ETF, than it would be a Bitcoin a Bitcoin into a big spot Bitcoin ETF? Do you think that maybe perhaps there might be some more leniency when it comes to that, and maybe that should be the direction you guys should go to?
It's incredibly difficult to predict what the SEC and regulatory agencies are going to react to, but I think showing this Bitcoin futures approval is a path towards more comfort with the underlying asset, Bitcoin. And look, our filing was deliberate in terms of the timing of us putting the filing in. The SEC now has the Bitcoin futures ETF off their plate. We have a very strong working relationship with the SEC. We've had very constructive dialogue over the past several years, and we're excited that they're going to review our filing for a spot Bitcoin ETF. Right,
Dave. So Grayscale is looking to convert its GBTC fund physical or into a ETF, a physical Bitcoin ETF. Now, SEC Chair Gary Gensler has signaled he's comfortable with a Bitcoin futures ETF, but has indicated he may need more authority from Congress to approve a physical Bitcoin ETF. Is that your understanding as well? And if so, how soon do you think the SEC might be ready to approve a physical ETF for Bitcoin?
Impossible to predict the timing of that. However, I think Chair Gensler and the staff have been very deliberate and very consistent in their messaging. And most of that messaging over the past 9 weeks or so has really been about the Bitcoin futures ETF and their comfort with a 40 Act wrapper for Bitcoin futures in an ETF structure. Now that that's off their plate, we're excited to put our filing in, have a strong engagement with the staff and with Chair Gensler as well, and figure out a path forward. A lot of his concerns and a lot of the staff's concerns that have been in disapproval filings and some of the other filings that have come in front of the SEC over the past several years seem to have been taken care of in this Bitcoin futures ETF being brought to market. And so we're really excited to be able to have the opportunity to now have our filing in front of the SEC and continue our constructive dialogue towards an approval.
So some analysts have suggested that there may be pressure on the SEC to prove your ETF because otherwise it would trap investors in this discounted fund. Is that would you say that's correct, or is that something you would agree with?
Look, I've been innovating in the ETF market for the past 20 or so years and brought a lot of innovative products to market. I've never seen the SEC be pressured into an approval, so I'm not sure I would use the word pressured. I think that the reality that we've had a very strong, very constructive working dialogue with the SEC, very strong partnerships with the NYC in terms of our filings that the New York Stock Exchange has to be putting in to allow for listing and trading of the Bitcoin ETF will put us in a great position to have a very strong dialogue and our best chance for approval.
So, Dave, a couple of questions before we wrap up. First of all, do you think how much of the questions about stablecoins are involved in Chairman Gensler's reluctance to approve a spot ETF? How much of that questionable? How much of that is just questions about what's going on in that realm affecting cryptocurrencies? And number two, obviously we saw ETH hit all-time highs a couple of days ago. What is your view on the outlook on that? Do you think it'll be in general an outperformer compared to Bitcoin?
So for your first question about stablecoins, our dialogue with the SEC in terms of our GBTC conversion into an ETF has not brought into conversation anything about stablecoins. Obviously, the SEC has a very long list of issues that they're working through within cryptocurrencies and then also in traditional markets as well. So we hope to kind of just get in line and ensure that we're having an opportunity to kind of make our case for a GBTC conversion. And in terms of my outlook on ETH, I'm the ETF guy at Grayscale, so I'm not sure I'm going to be putting any price predictions on any of our assets that are in any of our trusts. But excited about the overall drive for diversification and overall interest in the market. I think what we saw with the Sorry.
Do you think there are other commissioners at the SEC who might be a little more favorable toward the idea of a physical Bitcoin ETF, and that may be able to put pressure on, say, Chair Gensler to come around and approve such an ETF?
I don't think Chair Gensler is anybody who is going to get pressured into doing anything. I think we have very strong conversations with a number of different divisions within the SEC. It's trading and markets, it's corporate finance, it's BIRA. And so we're having conversations with, in all avenues of the SEC, pushing towards this GBTC conversion.
Okay. All right, Dave, thanks for joining us. Appreciate your insights. That was Grayscale Global Head of ETFs, Dave LaValle. Coming up, we'll be checking in on Asia with our daily forecast, as well as a deep dive into NFTs. A daily forecast, an update on what's happening in the Asia crypto markets. Here's Angie Lau of Forecast News.
Welcome to the Daily Forecast, November 1st, 2021. I'm Angie Lau, Editor-in-Chief of Forecast News, covering all things blockchain. Well, ripples from criticism over NFT hype continue to spread in China, with a trio of the biggest tech names in the country joining forces in vowing never to get involved in NFT hype and virtual currencies. We're going to take a look at that solemn vow and what it involves, and a whole lot more coming up. Let's get you up to speed from Asia to the world. All right, kicking off with some of the top stories out of Asia today. First up, Hong Kong-based venture capital firm CMCC Global aims to gather $300 million worth of investments in its latest crypto fund, with patronage from Hong Kong billionaire Richard Lee and Gemini co-founders the Winklevoss twins. CMCC plans to allot its new fund into DeFi and NFTs. Meanwhile, over in China, the September 24th ban on crypto mining and trading continues to bite, with another local government cracking down. GANZHOU, a prefecture-level city in the eastern province of Jiangxi, says its economic development zone is working with authorities on carrying out inspections at a local industrial park. The authorities say warning letters have been issued to companies in the area, with businesses and licenses being inspected. You can find out more on those stories and a whole lot more on Forecast.News. All right, staying in China, with growing criticism from state media over NFT hype, three of China's best-known tech giants have jointly issued what they are calling a self-disciplinary industry convention. Ant Group, JD Technology, and Tencent Cloud all have pledged to resist the hype and are rebranding NFT projects as digital collectibles. Forecast News' Timmy Shen has all the details.
According to a statement released by Ant Group's blockchain arm, AntChan, the trio issued a convention relating to what they call digital, cultural, and creative works, pledging not to get involved in cryptocurrency and saying they will work to prevent speculation and risks of money laundering. And Guofei Jiang, vice president of Ant Group, said in a statement that digital collectibles on AntChan are packed with the real value of quality cultural intellectual property and artworks, and that the company resists any form of malicious hype. AntChan confirmed the rebranding of NFTs as digital collectibles in a tweet last week, and Huanhe, an NFT app that Tencent launched in August, has also removed references to NFTs from the app. For Forecast News, I'm Timmy Shan, Taipei, Taiwan.
Meanwhile, last week we brought you the news of SQUID Game cryptocurrency, a parody token based on the hit Netflix series from South Korea. Well, its price has continued to skyrocket. According to CoinMarketCap, it soared more than 50,000% in just 4 days. Be that as it may, the token remains under scrutiny as users claim they cannot sell it, and there are a lot more questions over infringement of Netflix's intellectual property. Forecast News' Danny Park has more.
PancakeSwap, the token's only market, has warned investors of multiple reports of users being unable to sell the SQUID coin, and one Twitter user called the project a 100% rug pull. a term where the owner of a crypto project gathers investments and then abandons the project. Others take issue with the possible infringement of Netflix intellectual property, with no official license from Netflix to be found, nor can any affiliation with the drama's makers be identified. Meanwhile, Fan Club, a platform for collectibles under Hong Kong-based creative studio All Rights Reserved, recently released a line of Squid Game toy which are officially licensed from Netflix. Its creators acknowledged that the hit TV series resulted in many fake products, both in and out of the crypto space. However, they have a plan to combat fakes using blockchain technology.
For an authorized project won't actually last long because it's just something that people don't think that's with credibility. So what we're doing right now is to develop a platform with high security and credibility. Creators are able to acquire royalties through blockchain, through the NFTs, and also people can identify fake products.
Fan Club will soon launch an app where buyers can scan a physical NFT tag to verify authenticity of their purchases. For Forecast News, I'm Danny Park.
And that's the daily forecast from our vantage point right here in Asia. For more, visit forecast.news. I'm Editor-in-Chief Angie Lau. Until the next time.
Here's our live look at Bitcoin. The Coindesk Bitcoin price XVX index currently trading at $61,827, up about 2.3% over the past 24 hours. And the Coindesk Ether price ETX index is at 43.54, up about 4%, also coming down from all-time highs reached on Friday above 4,400. And the new DFX, Coindesk's DeFi index, is currently trading at 629 points, up about 2.76%.
The Coindesk Spotlight is brought to you by Nexo, the place to earn on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and more.
This week, the art, gaming, and crypto worlds collide for NFT.NYC, a week-long sold-out conference that dives into the world of non-fungible tokens. Joining us now with more is Jimmy McNelis, an NFT collector and CEO of NFT42. Hello there, Jimmy. Welcome to the show. So last year, we had the summer of DeFi. This year, it seems to be the summer of NFTs. Talk to me. I'd love to hear about your best NFT investment and describe what your criteria is when it comes to collecting them.
Thanks for having me on the show. I guess my best NFT investment would probably be I purchased about a dozen autoglyphs on the day they were minted in 2019. And for those that don't know, autoglyphs were created by the same company, Larva Labs, that created CryptoPunks, one of the original NFTs. And the autoglyphs, there was only 512 of those created. I think I paid 0.2 ETH for the ones that I minted, and they're currently trading above 300 ETH apiece.
Good morning, Jimmy. There's obviously a lot of froth in the NFT market right now. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the NFT market, or the biggest obstacles at the moment?
Well, the landscape's changed a lot over the last 6 months. Before, it was just a matter of finding developers to create your project. Now it's actually a matter of community and marketing in order to really reach the audience you need in order to have a successful project. I think projects now need a substantial roadmap and to show execution on it, whereas before it was okay to just release a collectible for being a collectible itself and not have to have any specific utility attached to it. But I think now it's, utility, community, marketing, and delivering on your promises that really makes a difference in a project's success.
So, Jimmy, specifically, what's the next frontier in NFTs? Where does this go next? What kind of projects, what kind of platforms, et cetera, do you think investors and people who want to get involved, or people who are heavily involved, actually, what should they be looking at as the next growth opportunity here?
I think if we knew how to predict that, then we'd already have seen the next trend. Bored Apes really did really well this summer, and everybody started to copy what Bored Apes did with the personal profile picture projects and, creatures having a collection attached. I think that NFTs themselves are a new primitive of the internet. It's literally a foundational layer of the internet. You can prove you own a digital asset. This is a new idea that has not existed for the last 20 years. We had Napster, where we could just download music and movies onto our computers, and that was the only way to get digital content. Now we can attach an ownership layer to these files. It's coming next. We're going to see NFTs attached to nearly every type of digital content that exists. I don't really know that gives a great indication as to what to expect next from the market itself, but I'm here for more of the technology than the hype. So that's generally what I'm thinking about, is how to get NFTs into the hands of enterprise.
How do you think?
Do you think we might see? Do you think we might see that kind of those NFTs attached to maybe physical rights as well, real world rights that could be traded in that kind of way? I'm just thinking rights to ownership. Yeah. Do you how far away do you think it'll be before the market accepts it?
I think we're approaching that point right now. I can't discuss the particulars of it, but I signed a IP deal this week with a major label on some of my NFT assets. I think we're going to start to see a lot more of the NFTs that have commercial rights attached to them be leveraged in a substantial way, for starters. And then as far as like physical ownership of goods like your or your car or something like that, I think that it's just a matter of we start to great NFTs.
Okay. I'm wondering about your thoughts on Meta, formerly Facebook, getting into the metaverse. Mark Zuckerberg talking about NFTs. Is this a good thing for Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg to get into, or not a good thing for the community at large?
I am extremely bullish on Facebook rebranding to Meta and getting involved in our terminology and trying to understand the space that we're playing in. NFTs are one part of this next version of the internet that we call the metaverse. And so Mr. Zuckerberg is just generally trying to stay ahead of trends and make sure that Facebook is positioned for the future. And that makes me extremely excited about everything I've been working on for the last 4 years with NFTs.
Do you collect any physical art, any real world physical art at all?
I didn't before, but I've amassed quite a collection since I started collecting NFTs. I realized that I did have an affinity for collecting art, and through the process of collecting NFT art, I actually started to collect physical art. Yeah, I have quite a collection.
That's a cool
like
bridge
what?
to make. Yeah.
Anything specific?
Like what? I have a couple cause statues that are pretty near and dear to my heart, and then I actually made a trade from a traditional art collector who was trying to get into the NFT space, and me, an NFT collector trying to get into the traditional art space. We made a couple trades, and I have a couple really nice pieces that have sentimental value, but are like also known artists doing the work. I'd rather not mention them by name, but really the color of the one, anyways.
Yeah. Just one last question before we close out. CryptoKitties, the first non-fungible token, was huge. Now it's not. It was a bubble. So what differentiates the projects now from, what CryptoKitties was?
Oh, CryptoKitties. That's where I got started in 2017. So I'm very familiar with that market and how that works. Some of the founders, the first 100 NFTs ever created, the founders are still actually doing rather well. They're trading in the 100 to 200 ETH range. But I think the biggest lesson to be learned from CryptoKitties was that the supply is way too much at the moment in time. There's over 2 million CryptoKitties. And it's a very complicated project to understand, so it's hard to approach. I think simplicity in your messaging and your marketing and your product is really important at this juncture. Since NFTs themselves are a pretty new, primitive, and complicated to a lot of folks, you don't want to dive much deeper than that, otherwise you cut off a wide audience.
Awesome. All right. Jimmy, thanks for your insights on NFTs, and see you at the conference. That was NFT42 CEO Jimmy McNelis. Coming up, we'll check in with Coindesk Global Policy Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day.
Coindesk Indexes, the market standard for crypto assets since 2014. Our trusted data powers billions in publicly traded funds. Coindesk Indexes are the standard used by institutions, and they're the key for investors looking to understand and access crypto markets.
Coindesk Bitcoin Price Index, XBX, has been instrumental to Grayscale, enabling investors around the world to access Bitcoin through a regulated, familiar product.
Coindesk Indexes enabled the early adopters to build crypto investment vehicles, and they're already trusted by a new generation of global investors.
Welcome back. Time to check in with Coindesk Global Policy and Regulation Managing Editor Nick Day. He was also the editor of Coindesk's The State of Crypto newsletter. Good morning, Nick. So I hear that we might get a vote in the House for the infrastructure bill this week. Can you talk a bit about what we might expect to see?
Good morning. Yes, various House lawmakers have said that they will vote on both the bipartisan infrastructure bill that we talked about all through August, as well as the primarily Democrat-led Build Back Better Act, which has been linked to the passage of the infrastructure bill by lawmakers in the House. Originally, this vote was scheduled for tomorrow. It looks like that's no longer happening, but the leadership in the House is saying that they do expect this to happen sometime this week. So that'll be something to keep an eye on.
Do they have the votes?
It's a good question. I think, the other side of that, of course, is figuring out the Senate side and figuring out if the Senate is ready to pass the Build Back Better Act, which House progressives have said is a kind of, condition for their voting for the bipartisan bill. But yeah, that's kind of like the big thing we're waiting for.
And Nick, what does this mean for the crypto industry?
Well, both bills have crypto provisions, but the infrastructure bill is the one that has the controversial, tax provision that broadens the definition of a broker. So, for a while there, it looked like this bill was going to pass for sure. It was a juggernaut. There was no stopping it. Then the Senate began negotiating the, social spending bill, and it didn't, it kind of slowed things down. So I think, what the industry is really going to be looking for is whether or not this bill does pass. And if it does, we're not expecting amendments. So probably the next steps are, is there further legislation that might address the brokerage definition? Is there, I imagine there might be a lawsuit indeed from, some of the industry participants. So just figuring out where to go from there is going to be, I think, what happens after the bill gets passed.
Cool. We're also expecting a report on stablecoins to come out soon from the Federal Reserve, so we'll be on the lookout for that. Nick, thanks for joining us. That was Coindesk Managing Editor of Global Policy and Regulation Nick Day. Don't forget to sign up for the State of Crypto newsletter on Coindesk.com. Let's check in on crypto Twitter with our tweet of the day. And I was loving the Halloween costumes folks were posting over the weekend. This one, Taz643.eth, tweeting, "Newbies, who are the leading minds in the space? Show me who I can really learn from, me." And it's a photo of the wise folks at Bankless dressed as popular NFTs, a CryptoPunk and a turtle. And then we have journalist Laura Shin also retweeting her beloved Bitcoin white paper costume a few years back. Also a very popular choice here at Coindesk TV. All right, that's it for First Mover. Thank you, Emily Parker and Lawrence Lewitton. I'm your host, Christine Lee. I'll be back live at 3 p.m. with All About Bitcoin. Coming up at noon is The Hash. You're watching Coindesk TV.